Hello. Welcome to Sister Women Spotlight. We're just going to wait for some people to come in, some guests to arrive. Got a new book, Paul Otote. Super excited. Trying to sit back with my water. Hi. Ooh. Sleep back a little bit. Hi.
Yo, can you hear me?
Let me just adjust myself real quick. You know, I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna be good. Okay, how are you?
I'm all good. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Yeah, I can hear you. Everything's good. I can listen so close to my face.
Cool.
Yeah, how has your lockdown been? How was life?
Life is alright, Life is alright. Just making the most out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? How's everything been?
Yes, same. Making the most out of what we've been given, and also creating our own shit, right? Because what this has made me realize is that we're not in control in the way that we think we are, and we need to like be building things that are like very specifically sustainable and like unique for us. Because things have. I feel like society's been revealed. All of the bad bits, all of the bits that didn't really make sense, or like all of the lies basically that we've been told have been revealed. So I think that like it's been a good what's the word? Time to process.
Experience. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so we'll wait a bit longer just to get everybody in. But yeah, so System and Spotlight is basically my way of opening up kind of wellness across like all the different kind of iterations. So I also do food. I do cooking lessons, workshops. I talk a lot about kind of unlearning and relearning certain ways of eating and certain ways of relationshiping with ourselves and our bodies and everything like that, like based on pre-colonial or non-Western ways of being, right? And so System Spotlight was the way to be like, okay, well, this is what I do, but this is what everybody else who does doing similar things. But like the core is we want us to do well. The core is we want to, like be fit and healthy and ready for life, to live, to thrive, right? But there's so many different ways of doing that and so many different like approaches and like I find that like with Black people in particular, their journey into plant-based lifestyle, plant-based eating has been so unique to their story. It's not kind of we read the theory and we applied it. It's more like my life brought me to a place where I had to change, or my life brought me to a place where the issues with the way that we're taught have been completely revealed to me, once you know, like once you know certain things, you can't really go back from it, right?
Yeah, so
yeah. Which I find really great because everyone's like, how can you not eat chicken? How can you not eat cheese or whatever? I'm like, because I know.
yeah.
So like, why would I want? Because
how did you get into like health and well-being?
I love that we're flipping it. You're like, Nick and me be the interview. It's fine, because you're still waiting, okay? We're going to get to you. It's been a lifelong journey, right? It's always been something that I've resisted, like how everyone's resisting the new obesity policies. They're doing it wrong, right? Completely, in my opinion. The government don't understand the reasons why people aren't invested in their health. But I was like, took it. Health was always something that was like, seems to be a punishment for me. It was like, okay, you're wrong, so you need to do it this way. You need to not eat that. You need to do it. You need to go to the gym and do that. Rather than it being like, this is for you and your wellness. This is for you and your like ability to enjoy life. This is for you and your ability to extend your life. and, you know, plan for your life, all these different things like that, was never kind of indicated to me. That was always, there's never been like an understanding that I think is a mainstream idea about wellness, about health, about fitness. Yes, this will be saved. To I am Jessica Cassidy, it'll be saved. But yeah, so I think I've been vegan almost 6 years. And when I went vegan, it wasn't about health. It was about like, it was like, I have a whole bunch of reasons, but it's like spiritual reasons. And it was about it was about health in that I was very aware of the disproportionate health outcomes. I have lots of family members with diabetes, etc. And so I understood that would be, I have less chance of that happening if I went plant-based. But it wasn't, I think I actually got to my heaviest when I went vegan, right? Veganism did not save me from poor mental health. It didn't save me from poor physical health. It saved the animals, which is great. And it did lots of other things for me personally that was great, like mentally, the discipline, or like different ways of kind of, I think it increased my empathy, etc. But veganism alone wasn't the thing. It was more kind of figuring out, okay, so I'm vegan, and where are the black folk at? Okay, why don't they want to be here in these spaces? What do they get? What are the reasons for the, like, me thinking that we need to look at food in this way? Why do I think that? And then really figuring out, okay, like food is the building blocks of life. We have been taught a lie about food, one that is, for black people in particular, very specifically aligned to racism, to white supremacy, and to you know, I grew up in a council flat, I grew up in free school meals. Like, food is political and always has been for me. So like, it's very important. It just all came together really as I got older and more just kind of looking at why I do the things I do. It just kind of came together. And like, I first started looking at herbs, etc., for mental health rather than physical health. But that's when you realize that everything is connected. And that's why holistic health is so important, because you can't actually do anything separately. You can't just work on your mental health without working on physical health, without working on this kind of spiritual and relationship building and all these different things. You can't actually do that in the way that we're told that we can do that. So you can see, you know, we talk about improved mental health being a byproduct. It's all about kind of comment if you can you hear me? You back?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
cool.
do you hear? You hear?
I couldn't hear you, know. But yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. So yeah, so basically just, it's been a lifelong journey really of figuring out kind of what, because most of the ideas about health are not necessarily formed around a lie. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily, it's a lie. It's a generalization, right? Not everybody can understand or relate to certain ideas about health or understanding about health, because the way that it's talked about, the way that it's shown to them, doesn't include them or doesn't represent them in the ways they need. Which is why when I found you, it was so amazing, because I was like so many black men don't want to can only think about health in terms of gym, right? And alongside that goes with like 5 chicken breasts and some broccoli. Like that's like the the kind of only way, right? Like of kind of, or you know, there are a lot of people who are invested in their health in a more traditional sense, in a more kind of high protein, low fat, like kind of not whole food necessarily, but like a wide variety, whole grains, etc. People do like there is that, and that's a very classed, I think, like rich, like it's not something that is necessarily accessible to all people, like organic, eating kind of free range. All that's one way of being healthy that I see people do, but it's not like anything to do with us, you know. I think when I saw you, it was you're so relatable, right? Like there should be so many of you, like just in our communities, right? People who are connecting things that are, you know, culturally relevant, but also kind of transformative. I think that like there's very few black men in the wellness industry, and again, like if they are, they're much more like meat, like gym, like there's what like a very specific, like I don't know. I feel like the way that you do it is very holistic, and then also like compassionate. You know, like you don't like you're not telling.
Don't gas me up too much, man.
That's what I get from you, okay? So like I feel like, you know, you're not. I find that some people are very much like holier than thou. I did it, so why can't you? Not really kind of thinking about the person and what what they actually want as well. Because some people, you know, think that they have to just go from 0 to 100. Like people are very much. I can't go. I don't want to go vegan. That's not something I could even imagine myself doing. So I can't do anything else. And I just I like the way that you like your content is very accessible. So you can kind of I'm just sharing what I know rather than I'm telling you what to do.
I appreciate that.
Yes. So if we can jump in, I'll just ask if you I like for the other person to introduce themselves. I feel like it's always a truer, more accurate not definition, but you know, a summary of what you do, because you know, and also what you actually like to do. So lots of times people are like, you're a caterer. I'm like, I'm a caterer, yes, but that's not the main thing that I want to share with the world, right? So with that said, what do you do? Who are you? And what do you bring to us? Yeah, what are you sharing with us?
If I was to describe myself, I'd probably describe myself as like an enabler of well-being. And what I mean by that is the kind of information or the content that I put out into the world. It's for the individual to take that information and be empowered by it. So it's like I'm enabling them to feel empowered to take action based on the information I'm giving them. I think for me, I've always been passionate about creating things that I would like myself. So the way that I deliver is the way that would work best for me. And growing up being a bit more hard-headed, nobody could tell me put down the digestives or put down, you know, the chicken or the Sam's chicken or whatever it may be, because being hard-headed, if someone says don't do it, you're more likely to do it more. So for me, what would work instead if someone said, you know what, you know, here's a little bit of information about this. I'll leave that with you. And then based on whatever you come up with as an individual, you can form a conclusion off the back of that. So it's more for the harder to reach in a certain regards. So I guess how I do that now is I have like a YouTube channel. I talk a lot about well-being. I talk a lot about like herbs and herbalism. I do events, so I have a brunch, like a plant-based brunch, which is it's called Dungu's Brunch. And I have, along with my business partner, we have a box called Herbie Box, where I enable people who may have not had an understanding or be able to get into herbs like that. They can get the box, and it makes it completely simple. It removes all the friction from what herbs can I mix, or what dose should I use, or how do I go around buying the herbs. So I guess those are the outlets that fulfill the original aim, you know, in terms of like enabling well-being. Yeah.
Okay. Which was your favorite part, do you think?
Do you know what? Like everything I do, yeah, it's weird because everything I do is like an extension of me, right? That's why nothing is really forced per se. So if I speak about something, it's just generally, you know, if I wasn't researching for a video or whatever, I'll still be researching because I'm very much a big fan of learning. I spend a lot of my time reading. So everything I love it all kind of equally. It's all a big part of me. You know, the fitness side. I pretty
Mm-hmm.
much after this call, I'm in my tracksuit now. I'm gonna
Okay,
go to the
okay.
gym. Do you know what I mean? The
Mhm.
herb side, like I've got this plant still chilling there. Do you know,
I
I
love
don't even do
that.
this on purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm,
So
hmm,
it's all intertwined in my life. So it's
hmm.
me living, but showing that through, I guess, social media in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's
Mm,
really like it's important for it to be authentic and for you to like actually be practicing what you preach. I
mm,
think so many times you see people um kind of just performing for social media or kind of not being honest about the
mm,
process. And I
mm,
think that like, it's really important that you do, you talk about that you do read all the time, and that it is part of that process of being well is
mm.
understanding how your body works to a certain extent,
Facts, yeah.
understanding what it needs to a certain extent, and that
Mm,
requires a lot of reading or a lot of time
mm,
invested in learning those things. And I think that
facts.
we live in a society where that's not possible. That time is not always well. Also time is whatever we can make time for what we process, right? But
Mm,
there's the lifestyle that we live in, 9 to 5, capitalism, all these different things mean that we don't
mm,
have it's harder for us to see that we have the time to invest in those things. And
mm,
so I think that's something that you do quite well is making it really accessible in terms of kind of, okay, I have a problem, or I have I feel like I need to learn more in these things, and you have your quick like 5 tips for this, or like 5 herbs for this, or kind of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
breaking things down very easily, so like
Mm,
like people like, especially because I think that there's a weird thing that happens with like a collective consciousness where certain people we're talking about certain things at the same time, and we'll all kind of know about it. So we have everyone kind of knows about Dr. Sebi, but no one really knows about Dr. Sebi, right? Because you have to actually do the reading to actually understand some of what he's talking about, right? And he's not perfect.
mm,
Maybe there's a lot of flaws in his work, right? But
mm,
like we all kind of have an idea of who he is and what he did, and we all have like CMOS, as we all of suddenly CMOS is a big thing, and then you have in these videos we also
mm,
have infographics on Instagram where it's like super quick and easy to get into. Okay, so this is why it's important. Okay, so this
mm,
I think herbs seem really kind of witchcrafty or
mm,
like there's a kind of layer of familiarity that's removed, I think, from most people, even though for people of African
mm,
descent or Caribbean descent, like we have an awareness of that way, more so than I think than most European people, is the awareness of using herbs for wellness, and of using herbs, bush teas if you're ill, drinking certain
mm,
teas,
mm,
being aware of that more so than the next person. But we are quite we've been quite convinced by this Western narrative of pharmaceuticals and a certain diet and a certain this and that. And I like that you present it in a way that's very factual. Um,
mm.
and I think that like something that's really important. I found in that, like, in this area. So herbalism gets a very bad rap. Like it gets like, because there's so many people who are lying essentially, or not lying, but misrepresenting stuff. Like misrepresenting
Yeah,
certain.
I know what you
You
mean.
know
I
what I
think,
mean?
yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's the game, innit? When money's involved, or
Mhm.
with the opportunity to gather respect in the
Yeah.
online platform, I
Mhm,
can
mhm.
understand why people choose those means.
Yeah. And that's why
Yeah.
the goal, the point of what you're doing is so important. I think everyone needs to figure out their purpose when they do certain things, or when they access
Mm,
certain like social spaces, or even industries. Like what is the purpose here? Because I think a lot of
mm,
people, the purpose is to make money. I don't think that wellness can ever be like, what's the word, taught in the proper way if the point is money. If the motivation is
yeah.
money, the
Mm,
motivation should be you know like you said, enabling people to empowering people to make those decisions themselves,
mm,
and to understand and I think it is a very individual specific journey, as I said before,
mm,
and so all you can do is kind of support and guide.
mm,
um
yeah,
who
definitely.
How did you get into plant-based lifestyle, plant-based eating, herbalism, and who were your guides?
For me, I didn't really have guides like that. So
Hmm.
I changed my diet start of 2012, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
how I eat now, I've been eating like this for over 8 years. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess back then, nobody, well, I can speak for myself and like people around me, nobody
Mm.
had really heard of like plant-based as a term.
Yeah.
Nobody had really heard of vegan as a term. For me, I just got sent down a path of like learning,
Mm-hmm.
researching, and
Mm-hmm.
based on the knowledge I had acquired, I was like, there's some things that happen that don't really make sense, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I could wait until they happen to me before I
Mm-hmm.
make specific changes, or
Mm-hmm.
I can think ahead and think, you know what, let me start making these changes now, potentially
Mm-hmm.
benefiting now from what might happen to me in the future. If I look at my
Mm-hmm.
grandparents, if I look at my great uncles, my great aunties, you can
Yeah.
start to see trends and underlying things. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like, I'm not tunnel visioned in a sense, right? Before
Mm-hmm.
I come to a conclusion, I really like to understand both sides of the argument. I look at it and then I'm by a sense, then based on the information I'm presented with, come to a
Mm-hmm.
conclusion. So
Mm-hmm.
I started researching, I started like learning about diseases. So I used to do weird things like I'll be writing like mini research papers on certain diseases like diabetes or
Mm-hmm.
arthritis to help
Mm-hmm.
myself understand, the reasons for it and the potential ways to avoid it moving forward. And then based on that, I was like, you know what, I'm cutting out everything, cutting out red meat. I stopped eating junk. I stopped eating
Mm-hmm.
sugar. And then
Mm-hmm.
around the same time, because I used to have like keloids, I used to have
Mm-hmm.
keloids. That also sparked my interest in in oils, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
then from oils, I think I went to herbs. I don't know which ones first. I think it might have been oils before herbs, or herbs
Mm-hmm.
then oils. So I think I bought my first herb, which was bilberry, back in like March 2011. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess all of that led to just me being immersed that as my character.
You back? You back?
I am back.
Oh my god. Yeah, yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you. You paused.
Uh,
You said yeah. So oils then herbs. That was the last thing I
yeah.
heard.
So for me, like when I start learning about something, I just want to be good at it. So I kind of like immerse myself in the whole
Mhm.
process of learning. And I literally it's taken me on a long path of like learning to where we are
Mhm.
now, where, I've read books on it, became certified in it, but yeah, let me backtrack. There were two people who I did read on initially as well.
Mhm.
Um, Dr. Sabi and Layla Africa, where
Yeah.
I purchased Layla Africa's books, I think 2011, African Holistic Health. And freezing, or is it you? Which one? I can't tell. Is it me or you?
You're back. You're back. I think it is you. I'm not sure, but I think it's you. But you read Layla Africa and Dr. Sabi.
Because I'm on like full bars, by the way. I'm on like
Yeah,
everything is full.
I don't know what's happening. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. We're
Uh,
just gonna soldier
Hopefully,
on.
yes. Yeah, we'll just keep moving. So I read both of those, and it definitely did, aid in my early journey on that
Mhm.
herbalism. But
Mhm.
back then I didn't know no titles. Like it wasn't until like 4 years in to eating
Mhm.
how I ate, where people are like, oh, you're plant based, oh, you're vegan, oh, you're this, you're that, and that's when I started using titles at a point, just to help people understand why I eat. Because for me, I used to say I'm
Mhm.
Dungutarian. I don't know what them man are on, but
Hey.
I'm on my own. I have my own
Mhm.
Dungutarian because everyone
Mhm.
knew me as Dungo. It's like, all right, cool, I'm on my own little. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
pretty much, I guess, the short version of a long story. Mm.
Mhm. It's so interesting that you say Dr. Taping in Really Africa, because those are two. I mean, I have your books and I have their. I have Stevie books, but I have Really Africa on my bookshelf, right? And I think that's my
Mm.
biggest issue with the current community of like Black herbalists, or that what we have, like the main kind of texts are very kind of hotep adjacent, very kind of, I don't want to read about my herbs and then homophobia and misogyny next to it, right? So there's a whole like that shouldn't be like that's why I think like people of our generation who are able to perhaps use more discernment when it comes to those certain things, using those books. But I think it's so beautiful that you're able to, that you've created your own books, or books that focus on, you know, what will actually help, so that people can kind of can access it in a way that like doesn't seem like, it's very clear. Your book is about health, nutrition. It's about you know, how to use what we've been given, like the nature's given us, right? And that is something that's way more accessible than African holistic health being framed in a very specific way. Yeah, so I think that it's kind of exciting to see like what we do with that information that we've read, and because I think that I've always just feel really disheartened like reading all these books like. Now, I just know that not to be true. Like the whole kind of Black women shouldn't have periods, and all this kind of like this kind of exaggerations of things that have basis in facts. It's very easy to not know that it's not fact. Do you know what I mean? There is a fact that the food that we eat affects our menstrual cycles. There's a fact that the way that, do you know what I mean? There's a fact, and that we shouldn't be having heavy, painful, week-long cycles, 100%. But the way that it's framed in those kind of books, I think are disempowering, you know?
I get what you mean.
I feel like that's the opposite of...
That's why when I recommend certain books, I have to be like, listen, for the faint-hearted, you know? You have to pick what they say. You have to just pick and choose what works best for you. And
but I think that like...
So go on.
I was like that is why I think there is so much kind of unchecked herbalism on Instagram, for example, because you have to use discernment. You have to just kind of take what works for you. But it means that people can have widely different kind of ideas about the same thing. So yeah, I like the focus that you have. Like it's very just straight to the point. I think a lot of people try and dress up their like what they do, and you don't have to. You don't like. It's just like this is how I've used these things. This is how I've gotten to this point of understanding. Here's an outline for you to do the same. Because I think like, you have clients, right?
Have you? Sorry.
Clients. Like, do you take on personal clients?
At the moment,
for like
no.
consultations? No.
No, I don't.
Really? You're like, how come? Is that a like what intentional decision, or is it?
Yeah. It's just time, really. It's just time. The reason, okay. Let me see if I can explain this clearly. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So for me, my whole premise or my thoughts are about optimizing well-being, right? So what I mean by optimizing well-being is like, I think on a day-to-day basis, we should aim to get the most out of daily life. So to get the most out of daily life, we've got to be energetic. We've got to be sleeping well. We've got to be in the best of mental moods, right? So we've got to have brain sharpness. All of the key things that make us an optimal being, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, that is completely separate to healing, right? So healing is basically a person who, things are out of balance in some regards and they're fighting to be well, right? So I think some people, when it comes to herbs and herbalism, they focus on the whole healing element, right? I'm focused on preventative measures and I'm focused on optimizing well-being. So for that, you don't really need to have consultations in a sense, because you wouldn't have consultations if you had like green tea and things like that. is powerful. So it's understanding how you can use these ancient techniques to make your daily life better, not to
Yeah.
feel. And some of the reasoning for that personally is that I think when you dive into healing, I'm my mind's a bit different here in a sense where I feel that when there's desperation, yeah, things can get blinded.
Mm-hmm.
I speak a lot in parables, unfortunately, but things can get blinded, and
Uh-huh.
and people could take advantage. So I kind of stay away from that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really need per se to have consultations,
Yeah.
but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I do. So people do say, "Oh, Paul, can I have a consultation? I'm trying to do X and X," and I'll be like, "Alright, cool." I don't do this often,
Mm-hmm.
but I take you on. So
Mm-hmm.
I get
Okay.
DMs like that all the time, but I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm very cautious or careful in terms of how I maneuver.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that
Does
makes
that make
sense. I
sense?
think there's responsibility, I think, that you have with it comes with knowledge. And I think that like people do have this weird, even with doctors, where you kind of allow them to dictate your care without actually any input from you. So I think it's probably that same relationship is extended. This person knows everything. They must know what they're talking about. They must know better than me, like how like if this thing doesn't work for me, but you're telling me it does. Okay, I must be wrong. Like, do you know? Like, so I think that there's a responsibility that needs to be had when you're kind of giving out this information, and kind of I don't know. I think it is the empowerment thing that's the most important thing. Like, it needs to be a sustainable changes. It needs to be things that you know, once you're not there, can still continue.
Yeah,
So I think that some people are, that's the hardest part is the discipline and the self motivation and the this and that and the other. But I think that's yeah.
I think people. I think this journey of well-being that we're on. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a fast-acting thing. So you're not gonna take one pill today and tomorrow everything's set in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an individual journey and it's empowering people to start that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I might say stuff like, "Oh, start your herbal journey," or "Start your herbie journey" if you're using a herbie
Yeah.
box, because
Mm-hmm.
the kind of people that I think my personal platform attracts are people who enjoy the learning element but understand
Mm-hmm.
that nothing is what it is until you know for sure it is what it is. By
Mm-hmm.
that, it's like, cool. This guy said X, this guy says Y, this guy says A.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna look at all three theories and I'm gonna say, all right, after
Mm-hmm.
my research, I might take a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
this, take a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of that, and that
Yeah.
formulates how I'm gonna live my life moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. I think that is the best way to kind of structure the learning process. So kind of figuring like, I think that we tend to sometimes fall into this like these echo chambers of kind of reading things that confirm what we already think.
Yeah, you have
And
to
so I
question
think,
your thoughts all the time. You can't.
yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
That's just to enable growth. So last time
Mm-hmm.
a person grew, you had to have challenged your current belief. So even if you believe
Mm-hmm.
something wholeheartedly now, you should
Mm-hmm.
periodically still question that. Like, do I still hold these same beliefs? And if so, why?
Mm-hmm.
They'll echo. Social media is an echo chamber. So I think it can lead to you slowing down of your growth because it slows down your learning. Because to
Yeah.
learn something new, you got to search for new things, right?
Yeah.
So it's
I think
interesting.
it can be used for learning, like for purposes of learning. I think that like that there are there's a podcast called And With Tech. Oh my god! I think it's called And With Tech, and so it talks about how you can use technology for certain things, and there's like social media is discussed frequently of kind of the ways in which it can benefit us and the ways in which it really is toxic, right? But I think like it's about intent. It's about how you plan to use these certain things. So if you're using like social media to react to things and respond to things, you're using it wrong. If you're using it to kind of see, like gauge where your ideas fit in the grand scheme of things, like in the collective consciousness, like, okay, I think this, everybody else is thinking something different. So why do they think this thing? Why do they, or like, how did I get to my decision? Because again, like I think, I don't know why, but we think that once we read the book, we know. And maybe that's like that's not the way. Like I think that your process has been very much so like read the book, read the other book, like listen to the podcast, maybe watch the YouTube videos, maybe then actually practice, right? Actually like live the lifestyle that you have learnt about, or even in between that bit is like deriving some form of structure to it, right? A plan based on your reading, and then living it, and then going back and being like, okay, well this didn't work, this worked. I when I went to go buy that thing, they didn't have it, but they had this thing instead that was similar. So maybe this thing is like there's a whole kind of thing. And then you wrote a book, which I think is like the how you know whether you understand something. You have to write it down and and figure out how to articulate that thing to somebody else. And so like I imagine that there was that process done with all of the things in the book, all of the herbs, all of the kind of the things that maybe you not have personally used them, but you have witnessed, them working. And I think that like we the big with millennials, with people who are but like grown up on the internet, so people who are below 40, right? We have this big thing about rationality and about science and about research and empiricism, and everything has to be done like peer reviewed and there must be lots of research. And if there's none, or if there's not enough, or it's not substantial, so for like herbs and most holistic or alternative medicines have this problem where the research is not there, right? There's no proof of it working, but there's hundreds of thousands of years of proof of it working, because indigenous societies have been using them for thousands of years, right? But that's not enough. We need to see the academic paper. We need to see the doctors or the scientists kind of co-sign all this stuff. And so I think like it's the way that you have decided to frame herbalism is one that is very far removed from pseudoscience, right? Very far removed from a lot of the pages you see talking about herbalism, where it's very much like it's not just about herbalism. There's a whole thought process and mindset you have to understand before you can understand what they're talking about. Whereas I think like what I'm seeing with lots of young wellness, Black wellness, like influencers, I guess, or people, is that they are very much about the science, very much about the kind of the like proving as to the further extent like this works. And I think that's what people respond to. I guess is like, for example, I don't kind of talk about things that I don't use or that I haven't like had specific experience with, because like based on what, like why would I just be talking about, I don't know, something that that is the thing. Even veganism, like I'm always like, you have to find your way there yourself, because there's no like guidebook or reference book or academic paper, or there's no facts when it comes to these things. There's just kind of intuitive like let me try, which I think is very much like how life should be. I remember asking a herbalist when I first started looking at herbs, I was like, what books did you read? Like, because I'm very much the same with you. I need to read. I need to do a theory to believe it, right? I can't just like drink some tea. I've been drinking tea my whole life. Like, what does that mean? But she said, it is not. You can't actually get this stuff from a book. It is an intuitive, natural thing that like we have forgotten. We have forgotten how to work with the earth. We've forgotten how to work with plants, and the fact that plants are like so powerful, right? It's something that we've forgotten collectively. And so, like, we need to, because we've been so far removed from it, we need a level of kind of like trust and faith. I think that's what you bring when you kind of stay away from the pseudoscience and stay away from the just chat, and actually be like, okay, this is why I think this is great, and this is up to you to figure out how to use it in your life. Because again, like there's like different herbs work differently with different people, with different potencies, with different all these different things. And I think people don't have any understanding of it in the reality, and so they kind of just dismiss. But I think that we need to, again, collectively realize that we've forgotten so much because our intuitiveness has been replaced by rationality. You know, like our intuitive, we no longer can be like, I feel this about this, or I know this about this without having a fact. I think we all need to like just do our research. Start looking. Okay, how did like in pre-colonial Africa? How did they deal with immune systems? How are our immune systems set up? How like what was the difference? And we have to actually, we can't. No one's going to tell us that. So that's something we have to like find. And so I think like more and more Black wellness practitioners and wellness influencers and whatever, like the possibilities for what us as a community can do for us as a community is wild because it's empowerment on so many levels. I think I wanted to ask you very specifically, and what time is it? Okay, if anyone has questions, can you put them in the chat now? Because we're going to do questions in a bit, but I just want to ask one more question, which so I've found that as a kind of it is really hard to get men into plant-based eating way more than it is women, and I'm being very binary in gender there, but yeah, like there is people who are just as men, there is a thing where it's like it's not masculine to eat plants, or it's not masculine to or the inverse is true probably. It is to be a man you have to eat meat. To be a man, you have to, you have to do these things in a certain way. You have to do health in a certain way. And I was just wondering has there ever been your experience of you being plant-based and you being kind of, I don't know, not taken seriously? You're like, no, you're like, me,
not seriously. Hey, where's Carlos? Ask Carlos. I'm joking, but seriously, nah, for me, no one's never taken me that seriously. I can't lie. That's
so interesting.
Do you know what? I think obviously a lot of interactions I have are in real life, and I can't imagine that be the case. Obviously, you get like banner about certain things like grass, but that's just like. I make some of them jokes myself in a sense. But in terms of like men, I think as men, or I can't speak for all men, but some of the experiences that I've had, and I can speak for myself, I think the way that a person is taught determines how they respond to it. So if you push, let's say, a rock, right, you're exerting force upon that rock, and you can expect, if the rock doesn't move, you're expecting the same or equal reaction back in terms of pressure. So nothing happens. So in terms of like applying pressure to someone to make changes, most people, what I've found, and I can speak for myself, I just automatically resist it without actually taking the information in. So I think like we can't speak at people for them to understand what's best for them. I know guys who smoke, cigarettes on the packet will say this cigarette is going to kill you. Like for sure. They might even have a picture of someone's lungs looking messed up. People smoke every day because we can rationalize anything away. But in terms of like planting information towards people, and monkey see, monkey do in some regards. So I had a lot of people come to me and say, Paul, I want to start having more herbs, or I want to start having more of this, or eating more vegetables. It's because they can see me, let's say in a gym scenario, they can see the kind of stuff that I do based on, certain things that I eat. And they'll be like, cool. From what I see, this makes sense to at least try a little bit, right? And then if I respond positively to that little bit, then I can go from there. So I think, that might be one reason that a lot of people aren't looking into other healthy alternatives, is because everybody wants to give people the whole. No one says, I might miss this, but giving people a step is all a person needs to make their own lane for themselves. And that might be why, because people are saying plant-based, the first thing you're going to hear is, I can never imagine myself not eating meat, because you're giving them the original, you're giving them the ending before saying, you know what, how about try a meatless Monday? Everyone can do a meatless Monday. If you feel better on Tuesday, it makes sense, because most people are rational beings. to make specific changes. So
Mhm.
I think that might be why. I know
Yeah.
a good couple people around me are similarly now. They don't eat meat, or at least they don't eat as much as they used to, and it's
Mhm.
because a lot of things they've done were incremental, no pressure, just everyone's in their own journey, finding their own lane.
Yeah.
I don't really, I've never actually told someone the words, I think you should go plant-based, or I think you should go
Mhm.
vegan. Because obviously everyone's an individual, everyone has to find
Yeah.
the balance that works best for them. So,
Mhm.
but the way I did it, I think like, a lot of people make changes, man. Not a lot of people make changes.
Yeah. I remember 2 years before I went vegan, my friend she wanted to go vegan, and she was like, I was like, why are you gonna go vegan? I was I think I was, no, what was I was fake I was pescatarian or some shit like that. And I was like, why on earth would you want to go vegan? This is 2 years before I changed. Why on earth? It doesn't make any sense. Like, because I had one understanding of what it was, and I think like it's so great. And obviously, like, vegan is a very specific lifestyle. That I don't think that that comes with a whole heap of fundamentals that not everybody yeah, that not everybody necessarily agrees with. And I think that like I said, I think veganism being presented in one specific way, one limited way, has so many problems. And I think I am seeing that like so many people are very open to being plant based and not open to being vegan. And I think that the difference is in the freedom. I think that we kind of present veganism to be a very rigid, rigid structure. And I think that the way that I've seen most most people who are plant based do it is it's very much like the more that you understand, the better choices that you make. And the more the people see you making those better choices, the more they ask you, okay, well, how did that happen? How did you do that? How did you? I don't understand. Like, how did you? When did that like? And then I think it's about how much you want it. I think we have to always come back to the question like, do I want to be well? Do I actually want to be well? Is my life now? Can it sustain me for the rest of my life? And for most people, that's a no. I think if we have to be really like aware of what we're agreeing to or what we're upholding when we choose to dismiss things like plant-based eating or things like herbalism without actually doing the work to understand it, like that is hurting ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So I think that like it is this the goal should be like information sharing, education, empowerment, like support and guidance in the ways that we can, rather than like this is what you need to be doing, this is the only way that works. Because it's not the only way that works. First of all, there are so many different ways to live a well life, a whole life. I think that not eating dairy or meat is fundamental to that, but there are people who do things very differently to me and who also like their diet fits with my moral and ethical guidelines, right? Or my understanding of what a diet should be. So I think that I think the freedom and the options that your work gives, I think is really great. And kind of showing how like the possibilities. I think that we like the main understanding of relationship with food that we have, especially people in the West, is very limited. And so I think that like opening up and saying, okay, we need these vitamins, yes, but look at all the different things that has them. We need this, yes, but look at all the different things. It doesn't have to be the one thing that you understand or you've been taught or you've been whatever. Someone said, is plant-based and vegan the same? Do you want to explain why you think it's different?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I mentioned this before. I don't really obviously use titles per se, and I just tend to live.
Vegetarian.
But if somebody was to describe me, they'll probably say like plant-based or vegan, but they're not one and the same. I think vegan is like a whole lifestyle that encompasses it.
Yeah.
So you're trying hard to limit, the effect on the planet or on animals. So a person who ascribes to that might not wear shoes or leather shoes, for example.
Yeah.
Whereas a plant-based person just cares about the diet, eating whole foods,
Mm-hmm.
and being healthy. I guess those are the main two differences between them. Some people will say because you're plant-based, you're vegan, but that's not necessarily the case, because a plant-based person might eat honey, they might still wear,
Yeah.
certain clothes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's a community element with, I think, the whole vegan community that's that makes them their own community.
Yeah.
Whereas a
No, yeah,
plant-based person is just a person that's just eating grass in it.
It is very. I think it's very that's so interesting. So there's community versus individual, because I think that is like how the world has turned. We've turned into very individual people rather than living in communities. So it's so interesting that plant-based is much more popular than vegan.
I mean, vegan is like in terms of a trend in the community. I think. Well, what's up? Can you hear me?
No, you pause. Yeah, yeah, you're fine. You're gonna pause that. No, you're fine.
Yeah. So with plant-based, I think there's still a huge community in that regards, though.
I think that there's a community, but I think it's less about identity, right? It's more about.
I see plant-based on bare statuses, like what's it called in bio? Plant-based flowers. If you on your
but maybe it's just
your bio, that is you proclaiming. That's part of your identity, or like people who identify as that can identify with me. I could be wrong though, but that's just like a random observation.
I think everybody loves to self-define and identify with a bigger group, I guess. Because I guess people, makes sense because it's easier to do it. I don't really care what you eat, the next person, but I would prefer to be with these people. But maybe that's just my experience of veganism, being very just kind of cliquey, right? It's very kind of there's lots of rules that I don't think plant-based eating has, which means that it's more open,
Gang.
Yeah. Someone says, what do they say? How do you overcome going to like a family gathering and having nothing to eat? I think you should bring food first of all. That's if you already know, take some nice food with you. But people will eat your food. Can I just say, I brought I was the only vegan I cook out. My parents, my family is American, right? And they all meat, sausage, like just heavy meat. And I made carrot hot dogs. I made like pot with mushrooms. Like this is my first bit of veganism where I'm like, ooh, carrot hot dog. And they were looking at my food like, what's wrong with you? And then they were like, of course, they were like, actually, that looks kind of good. That smells kind of good. Can we try it? And then they try the food and they see that it tastes good, and they see that like it's as good or like as satisfying as what they're eating, or even more so. And then they'll ask questions. I think that is try and start a conversation rather than an argument.
Makes sense.
What would you say?
Me?
Yeah.
What would I do? I just want to eat.
You want to eat?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, bring food.
I'm very unlikely to bring food to a party.
Really? I mean, I'm a chef, so it's different. I'm a chef, so they expect me to. But I will say, you can definitely I don't know, you cannot eat, but
I mean, why I do is not for everybody, because I've got very strong willpower in a sense, so that's just normal. For someone, you can definitely bring your own snacks. I feel like as an individual, you should always be prepared for situations that you can be in. So whether you foreplan and say to yourself, all right, cool, in this situation, here's potential outcomes that I can
Yeah.
go with. Whether the outcome is, I might try some food, or I might bring my own food, or I just won't eat. So at least that way you already prepared in a sense of what could happen in these situations. So you're not tempted to do something you don't want to do. You've already thought ahead. That's what I plan. So me not eating, I already know what that comes with. I already know what questions it comes with, and I'm planning for it. Can you hear me, by the way? Because it's starting to rain.
Yeah, no, I can hear you. I think that if you were, for example, dieting, like to lose weight, or if you were allergic to something or something like that, people would definitely make those accommodations for you. So I guess it's about asking in advance to say, and say like communicate. Say there's nothing to do with you or your food or your hospitality, but I can't eat this. I'm changing my diet. And I think that if that's your family, they should be able to accommodate, even if it's just a salad, right? Something for you to eat and for you to feel included. I think that should be already part of the family dynamic, really. Hopefully, is that there's that there. If not, then there's a whole bunch of other issues with that setup. But there's also like your family should be having vegetables and non-meat items at the cookout. There should be a very meal. So again, I think just kind of communicate and before the event. That's what I would say. Before the event, because when you're at the event, then it's rude. Because then it's like, well, you didn't think about it. It's your need, so you should make sure that it's met. Okay, we have one more question. Best herbs for joint pain, hip pain for women over 45. If you for the go-to herbs question, you can go to his page because we have no time. But the best joint pain, if we do that really quickly.
So what I would use if I was had inflammation in the joints or the hip, I would focus on a herb called cat's claw. I'd buy something called MSM, which is like a crystal, like a sulfuric crystal powder, and those are two things that I would focus on, to be fair.
Okay.
Obviously, do further research on that before you go for it. But those herbs are powerful for inflammation, for sure.
And Paul has 2 books, a herb guide and a vegan nutrient guide, a plant-based eating nutrient guide. Both of them are on my bookshelf. I use them frequently. Get them when we're allowed to shake a leg again. Come to the brunch. I haven't been to the brunch, but I've been wanting to for the longest time. And then of course, lockdown happened. But support. We need more of us.
If anybody wants to, I tried to put up a code in it. If anybody wants a Herbie box as well, use Dungle 7. Yeah, Dungle 7.
I'll add that to the when I save the live. I'll add that. But I just wanted to thank you for the conversation. It's been great. I love that you're just that you're just as you appear to be in your content, which I think is really important. Do you know what I mean? I feel like people love to. I think that in the wellness industry, people love to perform, and I think that we're not good at that. I think that's why Black people don't necessarily do aren't making the strides in the same ways, because we're not going to show you something that's not true. And so it's very refreshing. So thank you. Any what time? Okay, we have no minute left. I'm gonna Ooh. Okay, we're gonna cut off anyway. It's gonna work out. I might even join you and do one myself. I will continue to get it in because it's important. Lockdown's not been kind to me. I don't be kind to myself during lockdown, and I've felt fallen off. But it's cool because every day is a chance to start again. I think my whole thing is movement every day. Like that's like, even if you can't do what you plan to do in your head, do something. That's like, because that's consistency, right? That's some form of consistency. It's some form of dedicating your time to a specific activity. Yeah, and that is what is necessary. Okay. yeah, all the questions about her, I'm sorry I have no time, but you can send them to Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
And thank you guys.
It's been a
This
pleasure.
it's been great. Yes, definitely. And have a lovely rest of the week. Mwah. Bye.